Hello, my name is Anthony Wall. I had many fights through USA Boxing until just about half a year before the World Trade Center attack, maybe a year before. No, not even, And, and, and Connecticut had, with all sides, had roles with that, also with a hyper additional side. And that's not theory. Relative to, for example, just for all sides roles, fact, human nature roles with communicating other than our founders communicated about the answer, where one of the answers they communicated was that they didn't have free speech because everyone's speech had been measured and maintained. Fact, human nature tortured, extorted, and enslaved three ways, and forced to pretend other or to be sensed through our own. And when I say our own, that means the human species body of individual bodies, all group differences and demonstration of the same thing. So, of course, Native American. In other words, there's a hyper forensic trail that is showing us that we are in a semi-ancient trap. This had been sustained against all names. That's why Native Americans were fighting with Native Americans. There are proofs since before Christopher Columbus came here. But the nature of debate regarding it is used, weaponized, in sensing for the breaching method to measure and maintain the answers that James Madison, our founders, left behind him. Before he was a president, before they got George Washington to agree to use their plan. That's what caused the American Revolution. In other words, their child abused you guys, telling you that it was about a tea tax while slavery was entrenched north and south. And the summary of the law was fact, human nature, torture, extortion, slavery of everyone, therefore physical, but sickly distinctly too. And then, even though how sickly non-distinctly was positive to everyone, to want to counter it at the same time. The breaching method came from some ancient times as a hyper additional name evolved here. It already had roles with all kinds of things, all bodies against bodies with their syntax nature, therefore physical, and with counters to what that causes. And while nature is demonstrating a breaching method evolved, so nature itself too shows us the scientific value of a human fact, human nature breaching method being one of those things constantly that was the value of all those distinct laws and subjects. And we're like, in other words, reality is about what's hyper simultaneous. In other words, you don't leave slavery out from witch trials, and you don't leave how it was leveraged against black sickly distinctly, out from how it was sickly non-distinctly. Everyone was fact, human nature, tortured, extorted, enslaved to roles with use of location /S. Everyone monitored by international monitored conversations and companies themselves fighting with each other. In other words, even all natures of journalists, all rights to lie. In other words, the journalists, WSB, in other words, were they going to be good people? I'm sure they'll do right because it's the World Trade Center attack. Please, WSB. You have intelligence at and next to your location involved with the World Trade Center attack, before the World Trade Center attack, in it and since. And now there are judges and prosecutors and their family members and a whole bunch of people with the courts, like New Britain Superior Court and Hartford Courts and Connecticut's District Court, leading up to the World Trade Center long term and short term. They have roles, for example, with predicate acts methods. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a police form. I'm not a judge. But we know that too. We can, nature itself shows us. And what our founders actually communicated is that how it's more than just possible that names on all sides of cases, and the lawyers, and the names tied to them, their sources, their family members, the people that, and the same thing with the courts. And then where everyone goes or went, in their homes, all sides. The difference of that. This preaching method employed other to be communicated, other to be self-valued, having been communicated. In other words, for what nature communicates, capable for us to be capable of discerning with our short words, let alone the protraction, with convictions, let alone with guilt or with blame, let alone with truth and lies, just leaving out how there's exception nature, how nature communicates here too. In other words, never the Boolean logic is always being forced with questions to the freedom of speech and freedom of free press is being used to hide lie progressions. In other words, WFSB attached me to fake conversations with themselves and with others. Also, as recorded facts demonstrated, confirmed intelligence next to them through time, with many people from Wethersfield, Connecticut, who I never had classes with. And when there were exceptions, they're involved intercities and with Elm Streets in Rocky Hill and Wethersfield, with people right now actively involved with wire crime acts and methods, mail crime acts and methods, and wire crime acts and methods, even with a whole bunch of countries and their extended family members at the same time, and overt criminal enterprises and terrorists, as there ones also with their extended family members involved at the World Trade Center, next to it, and in the court next to it too, the Ninth Circuit Court, long term and short term, also per worse, since before our founders were born. This is also manifest right where and how the witch trials place in Wethersfield is manifest right next to Webb House, then renamed the Webb Stevens House. No. And George Washington was using James Madison's plan. He came here to counter-extort and to force the other founders there were more than 13 colonies. And slavery was entrenched, northern colonies and southern colonies. And he and even with the help of the other states, once everyone was forced to in other words, to win against England isolated inside those internationally monitored conversations and laws that had been entrenched. So this was also to free ourselves to force, because that was forced upon the people of England too, and it still is. And I'll tell you too, right through World War I and World War II, psychiatry was tactically delusions raw, criminally foreign influence, identity and differences racket, worse than war crimes roles, and tactically delusions raw. So Hartford Hospital has a whole bunch of people from a whole bunch of different areas too, who are recorded having been involved with predicate acts against me since I was a kid. Also with the names next to them and against others. And it's not personal. They also need to pretend it's personal because there are a whole bunch of different countries and overt criminal enterprise at the same time haven't been used remotely. In other words, I minded my business and watched this since I was a kid. So in other words, we have there's a lot of people tried to figure out. I'm not the only one, even if you don't realize it. Like with black people's rights of life, how that's left out with the subject treatment. How anyone can have passions and emotions so long. Like, in other words, I remember when I was a kid, and Eddie Murphy was the first person I heard swear. And I'll tell you something, this preaching method set up the swears. Because, like, how they're all nasty things, because we knew that each age of factory nature is going to be able to discern. There's a hyperforeign, but it knew they would only be able to discern to the extent of criminal foreign influence. And it already perfected a method of invested names A through Z of the human species body, blaming other things, others, or selves for things that it caused without realizing. More and more in defenses of that, more and more being incapable of affording discern syntax by the sciences, by their names, by the name they share, individually grouped and together, for how it's discernible too. That identity, which is not the other species' bodies, it is not our species, but it is anyway. It shows us that it is why and how they have two eyes. Other species' bodies, we have two eyes, distinctly but non distinctly and simultaneously, but also for that further hyper simultaneous, so to speak, for that further slash hyper simultaneous, because there are three identities of possession. In other words, there are 1/3/5 identities of possession over each thing and each part of each thing. Like, for example, 3 parts of time. There's the extent of the time past that you know is true always. There's the extent now active you know is true always. There's an extent like the seasons, their value. You know it's true always, even if it never comes here. Say the world ends. Their value is only increasing anyway. What we are being shown is its identity to an extent, but it comes with its complete identity relationship to itself. And the value of that only increasing, but also relative to a special difference, where our Earth's concentrated difference and communications with its system regarding positive and negative. You don't leave out how there could be in our differences between, positive or negative, criminal and ceaseless natures of positive. And we have questions like, people are only offered Boolean logic relative to the differences. This breaching method even used the difference originally and still before our fathers were born. Demonstrably, I'm not even a lawyer, of lawyers of all sides of criminal and civil cases, overt criminal enterprises, even when they're not in the cases, and the interbranch names, terrorists at the same time, all kinds of companies, all kinds of other, the same breaching method that could invent the sense and sensibilities of all these different individuals, groups, and together, blaming other things, others themselves are being sensed, including if it's an entire country together, and it adapts to it, and it adapted to it, and Captain keeps everyone only capable of blaming other things, others themselves, are being sensed by themselves. See, we have been systems A through Z, tactical terror from the human species body system A through Z. Here, Anthony, Boxing. And the republic for which we stand is science. It's evidence of science. That and just like the black people's whites of eyes, the hyper evidential. That this breaching method has. It knew that there would be a certain type of victim. Otherwise, they would be sensed through their own after a while. Like, for example, when we were young, more and more, we had the words, but they changed and faked our words. If we communicate about how, people don't even realize this. If you communicated, which nature showed, so I know other people did too, about how to correlate between how the Native Americans distinctly had something against them. A breaching method, a crazy method, and the colonists too, and the people that were behind it had that from, before modern religious messengers. Everything became crazy and internationally fake, grouped tactical ulterior from how nature is communicating to us, individual species body of individual bodies, and all group differences, where and how it's showing us its body, how it's making more hyper additional nature. If someone wants to deny this, their logic and their nature is going to have proof of the same thing. That's gotten away with based on how the relativity of them stacking and having stacked predicate acts roles into databases at each of the campuses we went to. Partially because it happened at their campuses too. but it's because of breaching methods, a method, singular method, very effective. Look how the suburbs were designed before America's founders were born, with slavery entrenched, sickly distinctly, and hiding per what was hiding behind, and through all the roles I have with it, like the different countries, like those internationally monitored conversations, down to what the sense and sensibilities of the colonists and the Native Americans as one group, as humanity, but now not allowed to speak about humanity, but having to use those words. See, everyone, and it's measuring the breaching method is not even in the scientific value in their words, because it took countries A through Z and made them blame other things, others themselves, for things that it caused, knowing that it could then get people to, you know, more and more defend the sciences abridged and while pretending other. And it could exploit it both there, because they already exploited it at all locations /s in all syntactical roles they did not want, not fathoming the extent of how their words are being used in our own, because they are, this is a communications racket. Thank God, if you guys would pay attention, follow mandated law. Please, former President Bush, former President Obama, and President / Chief Trump. Only one chief can be at a time. I can show you guys before and after you came into office. Each campus I went to, there were collusions between countries that have been here, and they were shown by this breaching method how they could play with difference /s. One of the things they share is collusion at and next to Harvard Hospital, and I don't know, probably next to Whiting Forensics in Middletown, other Middletown locations. People involved with a Bajario, a Subby Bajario, and a Phil Cololo. But Phil Cololo is the one who was brought up by Subby Bajario was brought up by the news, involved with some FBI too, involved with the Wethersfield Police switching and forging names, and a whole bunch of Connecticut police departments, involved with people on my street and people tied to him, involved with conjunctions to the state judicial branch offices, increasingly with something to do with all sides of the community center and the community center, involved with predicate acts for facts at each campus I went to and with the ones next to it. The teachers of Ray Reynolds and people associated with him have roles with the World Trade, and medical people associated with him. In my class, when I was in kindergarten, with people named DeMauro next to that school. Now, even if they made things up about their roles with criminal enterprises with middle school kids and grammar school kids, putting fake. I only saw Joe DeMauro one time, real quick, on 5th grade. Before and after I was in 5th grade, people had spied on me when I was in 1st grade, and then they told lies about me when I was in 2nd grade. I don't know what it was, and they were mean to me for like a week or something, or a couple of days, not just a couple of days, and I don't even know what it was. So in other words, and then, like when I was in 3rd grade, because I tied to body dumping spots and a whole bunch of things intercities at once that got brought up, and they were all recorded. They're using digital and wire crime acts and methods. They have a whole bunch of their rules with the departments used individually, grouped and together, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, rotten. The difference of that, pretending things are debatable that are not, valuing how they have a whole bunch of different countries here and there that are a certain type of victim / hyper victim. Predator only knowing how to pretend fake integrity See the quality aspect, the nature of debate regarding all kinds of things. It's involved with wire and mail crime methods, digital crime, a mass identity theft, fraud, slander method it knew that nature would show us is one of the things manifest. And because it interpreted what our founders declassified to us before we did. It already had through their lifetimes. That, in other words, still everyone has our leaders measured and maintained above locations, areas, and states they need to have help from. And they're only self out. They can't. They're all pretending they can't realize that economies were never free. The difference of that, not the difference of that criminally foreign influence, or the overt criminal enterprises, or the private ones, or the news. Connected intelligence is confessing and demonstrating that the news is directed to plant fake evidences, and they're lying about their motivations. So WFSB has roles with a whole bunch of people tied to my one school. I went there and they closed that school too that year. You know, they gave some of the kids desks. You know, I had a good desk. I liked it, but there's worse than spying on each age of fact treatment age. And reportedly, there was a woman named Harris. Was her name, but she has a son named Kevin Harris, who was involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders. I wouldn't have noticed, but he had been influenced to identity theft, fraud, slanders, planting evidences, and communications racketeering with some prosecutors and judges at Quinnipiac University, involved with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and child abusers, leaders of kids, including sexual and medical, years apart, leaders and youth/estimate roles. The same names were at and next to the elderly homes involved, and the locations of them, like one not too far from where the Wethersfield/Hartford on the town line, no, the way it is, the corrections officers, which is not far from the 3 spots at the end of the Brown Turnpike. And increasingly, these are people involved with the Wethersfield Police forging and switching names since I was a kid. They make falsified police reports with an array of fake things. And they've been screening their roles with a whole bunch of different countries. Overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and terrorists, clear as day. Search the quality of fact sheet nature regarding people using and having used words like extremism or terrorism without torture. In other words, because torture, that's a constitutional abridgment. There's still collusion/S with WFSB before the World Trade Center attack in Rocky Hill, Connecticut's Channel 3 News. Has roles with a whole bunch of people from Wethersfield. That's in Rocky Hill. Also on Elm Street, in conjunction to Elm Street, off Route 3, also off 3 in Wethersfield, a different Elm Street, with an Oliveri. Also, as one of the strangers that sought me out to record, confess, demonstrate, confirm, he got something to do with Elm Street and Wethersfield and Rocky Hill through time. Involved also with the Wethersfield Police and people next with conjunctions to the state judicial branch officers, with him planting fake ties, fake natures of ties to me. And he got out of a car and tried to open a beer. I wasn't drinking beer with them near a Keene house in Old Wethersfield years ago. And one time at Demora also had people chasing. He went like that with some police light, fake police light, and people chasing, but it might have been staged. But they have rules with more. I recorded worse with the principal child offender and people next to the campuses through time. And these are people. Demora's Market used to be right next to Hartford Hospital. Now it's in Rocky Hill. They have rules with foreign and domestic medical families. and people like with on Valley Crest in Wethersfield, Connecticut. Increasingly, they hid this from the people that were speaking on Valley Crest. Otherwise, they were in collusion with them. That's one of the reasons that Wethersfield government access also involved with Russians and Ukrainians and their doctors at Hartford Hospital involved with foreign and domestic military and fake conversations with me with the Leahy family. There are teachers of that and people that planted the class with a Ray Cololo, a Jamie Crone, and a Joe Lombardo. That was only three in an Italian class. And I don't know the guy's name. I never had a word of conversation with him because he was looking at me. In other words, I understand where it could have been. But either way, they fake and change what everyone says. As for the security with the campuses, it's not just in other words, we would have had things cleaned up if there was a place to call it the campuses properly. They're changing and faking what people are saying and just faking transcripts. And they're going before courts that are increasingly incapable of discerning the truth. They will be shown that the breach method already used them remotely too. They already showed them that they can be shown that they're psychopaths. How could they have spoken for black or white or hate crimes, leaving out black, white people as white survivors? In the breaching method, secretly, distinctly against us all. So, in other words, relative to how all of us know that we are theater. In other words, people, passions, and emotions, not behind something like that, not behind what's true always, not leaving out exceptions, let alone how nature uses it hyper additionally too. In other words, per phenomenon, I can prove to you guys presidents. Per phenomenon, I recorded the police threatening me through my lifetime, not to try to get help from the police. So I can't trust them because they fake conversations with me at the Wethersfield police station when I was a kid. They weren't at all. And they weren't at all when I was an adult. A guy Eric Mendez stole a sentence from me. He's one of the ones with people on the Valley Crest Street in Wethersfield who confessed him involved with him, and with the people with the name Potter involved with the state judicial branch offices. And all along Route 175, there was a Rita Swanky. I don't know if that's her real name. Has something to do with and no, that's why I didn't tell me out. In other words, with former Mayor Gold, his daughter, and apparently her son too, per people with the Whiting forensics too through time, involved with a whole bunch of people tied to a Joshua Julian, and involved with the houses near me, with some police forging and switching names, and they're trying to make fights. Also with people with violence from other areas. So these are people also involved with organized crime with the corrections offices and with the judicial branch offices. 2 speech class teachers I have roles with there are proofs with the World Trade Center in 93. And there are roles with Washington, D.C. a number of ways now I can discern, show you. And increasingly, these are also people roles with at least 3 home break-ins in the area through time. And at least 3 that Heather Hansen knows about. As one of the girls recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, even when she was directed to make confessions to me and to others. She was influenced by people associated with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and his co-defendants with a whole bunch of different countries, and their family members, and their lawyer and people next to their lawyer's office kept needing to act for other people that had life progressions tied to roles with and as use/s of predicate acts with facts, and use/s of them collusions at each campus. Now, see, where there is guilt, forgiveness is because all the sides of cases originally still this breaching method back then, like Lord of the Rings, or not Lord of the Rings, what's it? Lord of the Flies. I was trying to make an example. In other words, incapable. In other words, witch trials, you don't believe, you leave out the subject of the slavery. And from slavery, you don't leave out how everyone was sickly distinctly, but also non-distinctly, fact, cheap nature, enslaved, and forced to go forward. Be a value progression system, tactical alternative from the hypernative pure. In other words, this was sustained on there are proofs it is more probable and practical to convict, to theorize, let alone to convict. Also, in other words, that Native Americans had already been divided by Native Americans and had been united with Native Americans specifically to make them not realize when they were talking about that, and then everyone's going deeper and deeper away from the sciences without criminal foreign influences, without not as criminal insidiousness, let alone not as criminal insidiousness. Collusion /S was already at all locations /S, but no one wanted collusions with. What would it cause? And blamed on other things other themselves. But he made those examples. Because the whole time everyone's doing things that you don't want to do when you're tortured, extorted, enslaved, you're doing them all. So if you say something you want to say, but you have to say it. So that's why it's important too to force the quality of fact human nature here. So Wethersfield police have people with the name Kalo, and increasingly people tied to a guy who's reportedly was a roommate of Ray Kalo. I don't know his name. I'm not the one from Old Wethersfield on Church Street. There are people on Church Street through time involved with the intelligence community, as ones involved with the World Trade Center attack too, also with the news, and two acting professors. See, the right to lie at states, locations, areas, and states, there are proofs not just in America. They have you guys have other communicated about the value of someone's title than nature shows, and then our founder showed, or of people as in other words, the people involved with crimes, even real ones of all natures, they're changing and faking what they're doing, and they have in other words, they have people next to body dumping spots, collusions with the prisons at those spots, prisons at the campuses, with the people intercities originally still. Said one of the jobs of the law are roles of predicate acts for facts, methods, styles that are self-valuing, just because there was the breaching method forced them to self-value. Not just legitimate, like say you have nuclear weapons and you have to hide something because of nuclear or whatever, because they have fire departments too running in to hide lab progressions. At Hartford Hospital, identity theft, fraud, they're just changing and faking audio and video. They show fake transcripts to presidents. There are proofs because they have to show up what's actually recorded. Shows that all natures of investigators haven't been used remotely, criminally foreign influence. Tactically, delusions are off. A through Z. Here, Anthony. In other words, please get WFSB to fix that. And WTNH has people like there's a Paul Kelly. He might have been attached to fake conversation with me. I swear to God, I never had a word of conversation with him. A Paul Kelly. Him and his neighbors have roles with some probate court judges, all kinds of drugs and medicines, crimes with the kids, identity theft, fraud, slanders, and roles with untimely deaths. And people from other schools planting evidences on all sides of people's houses with people that went to our grammar schools. And like and the schools before that. There are connections that were made between people intercities too, even interstates. Paul Zano sought me out to record, confess, demonstrate, confirm. He's got people with Johnson and Wales, and with Bryant University. Also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with people inter and intra-cities, like with Central Connecticut State University intelligence before and after the World Trade Center attack, as their roles, with the ones with the names brought, with the Saudi themed pill. So Joe DeMauro, my Saudi friend, repeated to me more than once that Claudia Scalora had told her that Joe DeMauro and her, or the John DeMauro, had sex together, and they were cousins. I don't know. In other words, I never had a conversation with verbally with Claudia Scalora. She was outside my hotel room the night before and the exit, not to the building of it, the night before the World Trade Center attack. And she has roles with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin. Also, because that Joe DeMauro has roles with Heather Hansen with the home break-ins and with a whole bunch of people on Church Street for himself, recorded with others, with wire crimes, with falsified police reports, with like now these Mendez police too as adults. They attach me to fake ties to themselves, fake locations with themselves as a kid and as an adult. At the Wethersfield police station too, with people that went to the Wethersfield police station. I never went there at all. They wanted me to go there after I had been in a car. I went to school with a kid that wasn't even in our school. Chris Walters came with a Ray Colo. So they're increasingly involved with people tied to the Britain Superior Court and Hartford Courts and Connecticut's District Court at the same time with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and people tied to body dumping spots and news and next to news locations all along Route 3. Paul Zano, I only know him. We used to plant evidence, his fake ties, fake natures of ties to me. Like they'll take his picture near me. That has something to do with Johnson and Wales and High Life place. There was a High Life place right before it closed. Someone had influenced Paul Zano to take me to go with a High Life place. I think with a John Mile there. And so I'm not talking to anyone too, and I don't notice. You know what I mean? So I don't know. There's something between them, interstates, with prosecutors and judges, all fake. With the overt criminal enterprise, private ones at a time. But you also have medical offenders. You guys are also using the right to lie. We don't have the right to lie. You're also leaking while you pretend other. You're also hiding behind your roles with the families next to the campuses too, through time, intercities, internatures of campuses, including fire and medical. Increasingly, people next to Hartford Hospital are involved with a whole bunch of predicate acts in my street and area through time. And they have doctors that attach me to fake conversations with themselves. The same ones involved with the wire crimes at the same time with the police through time and with the intelligence families that used to be here. They're involved in intercity. Jennifer Kampicki will demonstrate to you. I only know her influence because her influences, her roles where she was influenced to make confessions tied to the corner of Highcrest Street and Fox Hill Drive. Also with judges and prosecutors and for a whole bunch of different countries and medical offenders of kids, identity theft fraud, sequence shifts, people putting predicate acts in databases and building on that. And the criminal and the guilt there or at the other locations. The difference of that was used by this breaching method too, because there were a whole bunch of the different countries, and things, federal criminals before they were caught, and Russians and Ukrainians involved. All kinds of fake medical corruption, identity theft, fraud, extortion, torture, and slavery. No one has time for this. Get them on paper, one name in sequence. They can't do it. They fake conversations with me. Please, Judge Napolitano, I told them too. And it's not a trick. I warned them, not to lie. They want to make it worse. Let me show you how I'll delineate their criminally foreign influence, fact, cheap nature, quality aspects in nature from the delusions too, because they have roles with Hartford Hospital campus with a whole bunch of people, with the ones next to them, as roles with home break-ins in my area through time, and the people that made more threats to hurt me physically, as the ones tied to the ones with the wire crimes with the police, who also put arrays of falsified police reports, all fake. We just put a chart and they with tricks for the same arrest. But intercities police departments have people with the name Demaro and Cololo. They said there's ones with the name Doobie, a Rich Doobie. He confirmed at Rolls with a West Hartford location with them. In other words, he doesn't know. He confirmed that. I never had a word. I saw him there one time at the hospital. At West Farms Mall. They're educators. I Rolls with conversations with the interbranch and foreign have been putting fake ties between people, fake conversations with people, and they'll tell you this. In other words, but these are all. These are one of the things that brings up people intercities that little planted evidences that in cities layout other locations is one of the things tied that way. And as the ones involved with the Scalora family and the people at the World Trade Center and the people at the Ninth Circuit Court next to it, all sides of that case, their sources. And the court itself was proven afterwards having changed the time stamping and changed the date. It was brought to the court, the legal papers. Increasingly, Central Connecticut State University in Connecticut had roles with the names in Manhattan, New York, and in Washington, D.C., a bunch of ways, involved with the former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, but demonstrably more people tied to that. Increasingly, there are more leaders of kids who are being coached to hide what, and for like there were reported two different principals with the name O'Connor. The FBI has people tied to a Tom O'Connor. There's also a Tom Potter on Facebook, and I had Mr. Potter associated with someone named Mendez, who's involved with. He came into that class for one second from another class of mine. I don't know where he came from. And with Demaro, one time they made one exception. That was the only time I ever saw him on a middle school campus. It was really quick. And he brought up the Mike Tyson fight. We just talked about how Tyson, that's it. And in other words, my fifth grade teacher, Mr. Pruzzi, there was a sixth grade teacher that lived near me. And there was a mayor that lived like, I don't know, a mile away. And there were also roles with this. But mass identity theft, fraud, slanders, and refusals to identify themselves legitimately interbranch, intercities, and interstates, and international. I even begged Saudi Arabia on Facebook. Facebook also has people personally, professionally involved. All along Route 175, also has Wells Road known. And I don't even know if that's Celeste Wells. And she'll tell you. She doesn't know what that number. A Joe Demaro and a Mike Kerr and a Ray Collo had educators. I never had a class with Joe Demaro. I don't know if he was in my class or not. I only remember one day in there. No, I didn't even think he was in my class. That was in fifth grade with Mr. Pruzzi. He told me to do a maze of a Joe Demaro. He was mad. I went right through it. He wanted to fight. So started a little fight at the side of school. And then it was like someone brought him in with like there was some police department families named O'Brien and Cololo. That it must be intelligence with them. But I know they have roles with the various police departments with the O'Briens. and with other people, with predicate acts, also with the FBI, and for further ways. See, they want to bring up things, leaving out other things, and what came first, and what's most important. And these are increasingly people involved with child abusers, leaders of years, first years apart, first forced, even if that's made up. I recorded worse, too, with the principal reportedly in jail for upskirt pictures and shopping centers. No. And John DeMoro has roles with the FBI too, with shopping centers. He wanted me to go with a car with him when I was in middle school. I don't know if he's gonna, you know, but that also got brought up. In other words, but my son, but by other people from other cultures, with that corner, with the side of Town Line Drive, and with confessions at Central Connecticut State University before and after the World Trade Center attack. There's a doctor. I mean, there's a Detective Samuda who was involved with. I believe that's the guy who was calling in. She said that she thinks that was him because someone had been calling in to her. This could have been the FBI because a bunch of people tied to former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, had been planting evidences too. I've been calling her on the business phone at Central Connecticut State University with like sexual things. And God knows what they're doing, like all along. It has something to do, Heather Hansen said, too, all along Route 175. And they have rules with the conversations of family members and the person of Mr. O'Connor with like Eric Klotz is reportedly on. I never had a conversation with Mr. O'Connor. Eric Klotz was in my sixth grade class, came to my sixth grade class reportedly from Yonkers, New York. And it was a Russian person in my class. And those people and people tied to them are increasingly getting brought up with the fire departments involved with wire crimes, the Wethersfield Police too, and Hartford Hospital people involved with them. There's an inspector, Mike, refusing to identify themselves legitimately. And, it's multiple times now. And with the phones, too. So what they're doing on the side of the house, in other words, it's not just last time. But what's the rest of the name of this man, Inspector Mike? These are people involved with court switching and forging names who are involved with uses of corners of buildings and timing where kids are going to walk. It's not just against me. Increasingly, there are people when they walk towards the cafeteria, for example, even they change the set of the school, for example, what they're doing. They're being shown to do by a breaching method that shows everyone how they have to hide what's actually recorded regarding the actual value of people's convictions and their syntax and their functions, the value of the achievements by jobs too, like economy. You don't leave out the breaching method. So increasingly, UPS has people intercities too, involved with intelligence communities from off them. So it's not UPS's fault. And in other words, I'll sign because that's why I came there, UPS. Not. I swear I won't sign your shoes. Just help me get them on paper. No, I let them speak about me because it's behavior racketeering worse than war crimes. People playing games with this. So that's the first campus I went to on Valley Crest, increasingly involved with Ray Reynolds. Years later, he has something to do with a Joe DeMoro and him were in the class together, and they slept on the floor to make it look like other was in the record. I stayed in myself in a room, and Eric Jensen and Mike Roberts were in another room at a ski lodge. And and Mike and Joe DeMore wanted to come out. I want, but it was he put it was, and so he went and they slept on the floor. But it wasn't just like a thing. They're trying. Those are people that are increasingly they're putting fake things in with Inter branch. Increasingly, there are people with a whole bunch of different countries involved with the Mike Roberts. I never had a class with him. He's involved with some black-white KKK theme, Confederate flag theme, identity theft, fraud, slanders with his educators and people on all the state judicial branch offices that are recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed by a whole bunch of people involved on off 2 Route Highway and Hangdog Lane with some black KKK, like a Latino theme, and medical offenders of kids, foreign and domestic. Same ones involved with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and wire crime acts and methods, and digital ones, including with women roles, including women judges, changing and faking what's digitally recorded on Facebook, like with the Joshua Julian. And these Mendez police faking conversations with me at the police station as police. And as ones next to Fox Connecticut News in Hartford, too. And with ones with the name Domain. Increasingly involved with all kinds of natures of organized crime, involved with the algebra class. And her yelling, and her starting the class by repeating things sexual about my neighbor and her religion, with Mike Domain saying that he's Jewish too. And some people tied to him all used to say Jew, call each other Jew. So this is a little rat trap. Has something to do with their roles with lobbies, but has nothing to do with that. So I don't even know if it's Jewish lobby. But these are the people with multiple police departments, just fake and change. They just put kids to fake conversations with themselves. Put some other kid in the car and then pretend they knew them before that. Put that faked in databases too. Increasingly, people involved with the intelligence community tied to a Christopher Walters, his educators, have his family too. They'll tell you, influence to put fake things in databases about me, lie about what they think about me. In other words, all exception nature come with demonstrations of the same thing. I don't know all the names involved. I just know that these are also people with a Mike Pandol, with all sides of criminal and civil cases, people tied to him, and one's his neighbors involved with people from other areas, like pretending they knew kids before they did on the street, and then with ones that are from like other country, people like that mixed with them. In other words, I don't even know all their names. There's also a Fred Grisey is involved with them, with that. In other words, and with judges, prosecutors, families, a Chris Walter, a Christopher Cullen, and a Mike, not Cullen. Him too. I never saw Christopher Cullen. He walked by me one time in a school. They may try to make fake exceptions of knowing me. A Christopher Cullen's increasingly involved with foreign and domestic families, involved with databases crimes, digital crimes, and evidences crimes, predicate acts roles with former Mayor Gold, people tied to a former Mayor Gold, and medical families putting fake things in databases, and with judges and prosecutors, family members switching and forging names, roles, and sequences. A Mr. Neville is recorded involved with a whole bunch of people, confessed, demonstrated for all along Route 3 are people involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, and that goes right by the state judicial branch offices. And these are also in the form of federal evidences crimes roles. In other words, that's why they can't get on paper into branch, and they keep putting fake things in databases more and more. So people that have been speaking about crimes, the breaching method showed them already. It shows them they have to hide their head rolls of predicate acts with facts and with delusions, and their whole nature as criminal natures used remotely. They got the serial killer's body don't be spot names next to it, increasingly as ones who planted evidences on my street from other areas, with the military increasingly involved, increasingly leaking with the Weathersfield police. Weathersfield police are too much of cowards to get the police chief Cintron and their names on paragraphs. They increasingly they're confessing that they have been influenced a whole bunch of times to make instances come to my house and then just make a statement, make a statement and go away, and then do different things and pretend we communicate. They're putting fake records and they're hiding with the confessions about the role switching and forging names with the falsified police reports. Where they put charge with no writing. And then they put a confession and changing this officer's names. And but you can't get anything writing to write about. You can't get one story. Please, Judge Napolitano. This is right through when you were with the news and not. And this is what is the three branches. This is a whole bunch of people at the state judicial branch offices and at the corrections offices, who are also a whole bunch of people next to Central Connecticut State University through time. Criminally foreign influence, tactical illusions, raw. Eric Jensen has roles with the intelligence community there through time and with the state police and with locations along, the Burl Turnpike and Southstein Highway and Route 175 from the founding locations, where there's the witch trial place and Webb House, now changed with the Webb Stevens House. And Church Street has roles with WTNH and the FBI there too, with acting professors. Joe DeMore and Ray Collo said that there's a Briggs family. Gary Briggs, I never had a conversation with him. He worked at, and they said there were roles with intelligence at Mobile gas station. Chris Walters also said that as an adult. I only know Chris Walters seeking me out. Well, one of the things I figured out was what they're doing. He has roles with other people too, involved with all kinds of medical corruption, database, putting fake things in databases with medical families and people from the difference between private schools and public schools too. And at Hartford Hospital, increasingly with intelligence tied to them as roles in the World Trade Center attack. In other words, so Ray. There are proofs that Ray Reynolds has roles. And I never had. There was a girl that looks like she's on the Bravo network. Looks like she might be tied to a Ray Reynolds. I never had a conversation with her. They might have pretended that in Westbrook with Ray Reynolds, a Mike Panadol, and Eric Jensen. Increasingly have roles with people at my grammar school. I don't know what grammar schools they went to. That were also roles with predicate acts on my street, planting evidences with them intercities and next to all the campuses I went. And with the news at the same time. So they have those kind of jobs with the intelligence where they're planting roles with the news. And have something to do all along Route 175 from the founding locations right through Newington onto Central Connecticut State University in New Britain, where it ends. And all sides of that. A whole bunch of people from Weathersfield, Connecticut have collusion there on the sides of it and at the campus. It's all a bunch of people at UConn, Maine University, former Governor Malloy, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with the police chief Cintron, and people associated with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and other countries' criminal enterprises, involved with more sexual and medical offenders of kids with a principal upskirt nature where they forced it and they forced more stuff. And they're faking and changing what's digitally recorded. Please, Governor Malloy, do what's right. Get them on campus. Get them on paper. Let me show them what's actually recorded. They're changing and faking what's recorded. They're also hiding a bunch of things that I could have shown you guys. And with the dangers on kids, they're forcing them not told on. They're keeping a whole bunch of things at once. Then they're locking them in the school. How long are they going to wait? They have mold. They're supposed to stop right there. See, a lot of things they're charging us for, we don't even need to do it. We're going for free and fix it. Way better. In other words, clean it. Let alone make sure there's no. In other words, where you guys have syntax at the opposites, you can't leave out the breaching methods use of location/s, and then further at database locations, and further where there are campuses. You guys have had too long to, you guys have a whole bunch of people at Hartford Hospital's Institute of Living and the houses and buildings next to it involved with overt criminal enterprises and private ones with grammar school kids and middle school kids that never even saw each other's faces, attached to fake to change ties to each other. They're planting predicate acts cover-ups. They're putting, then years later, they're needing to hide lie progressions right time to corners of streets where they affected confessions regarding. Same, something to do with their roles with Russians, like the one with the name Peruta, and with the Jennifer Kanapicki roles with California, and with the medical, and her roles with the confessions tied to the Hangdog Lane, like with the same thing with the Rick Sanfaglione, and his roles with a Leahy family. A Leahy family pretended through the mail they had conversations with me. They have something to do with a whole bunch of people on Hangdog Lane, 2-hour highway involved with a former Mayor Gold, planting evidences with them, identity theft, fraud, slanders, and a Joseph Dennis with the New Britain locations, intelligence, and West Hartford locations. Could be foreign influence, tactical delusions wrong. Then they pretend it's personal. They're sequence shifting. What came first? No, these are also other people involved further with the corners of streets and people with roles with the child defenders further, like the Perone. There's people with the name Perone and Kerr at corners of streets involved. And the World Trade Center, they attached me with WFSB to fake conversations about the World Trade Center and with others too. They pretend I had conversations with others too. And while they were forcing the principal child abuser, and while they faked and changed what was recorded over the phones and over the email, their digital crime methods, and they're hiding about their real motivations, and they're leaking about how they're exploiting how they have roles with a whole bunch of different countries and their extended family members, also at corners of streets, also with time differences, rackets, like with the difference of America or the Saudis involved. Increasingly, one's tied to Eric. What's his name? Eric Mendez. Like, what kind of person will go that and not know the person? He was influenced to pretend he knew me when I was in middle school. Real quick to make a fake exception. When I was in the class of one of the people tied to the judicial branch officers. And increasingly, people next to that and tied with body dumping spots and other natures of organized crime, predicate acts, methods, as people that deal with crimes, investigators, could be foreign influence to use tactical delusions raw as a certain type of victim / hyper victim raw. But you try to treat things right, everyone forces. That's why people need to follow mandatory law. Get on paper, please. The Connecticut Interbranch on one name in sequence. I've been giving a police report I can respond to since I was a kid, and they're leaving out increasingly connected their roles with a whole bunch of different countries of criminal enterprises and private ones with the same names involved. Further, with people from other areas planting evidence all sides of my house and the street, like the one with the Phil Colon who was driving a bike on my street. All of a sudden, he's gonna be on my street now too. We're gonna get this taken care of. With his roles with the Bob Chase confessions tied to the Phil Colon, with the child offender and the falsified police reports, whiting forensics too with a Joshua Julian. I don't even know him. He said he was planting evidences. He's roles with predicate acts and federal evidences crimes on the south side of my house, and with the people that shot the gun at me. In other words, hey. Let's get them on paper, one name in sequence, please. Judge Napolitano. They switched names, forged names as interbranch, still grouped and together. This is hyper evidential. New nature of evidence will be famous, please. I'll share the credit with you. You'll be able to say it's true. No, the hyper evidential. It is time.